government spending, as we've talked about, and the other policy issues. Mr. Boccieri.
Thank you. Gentleman from Pennsylvania is very appropriate in his remarks. And I will tell you that, from a freshman's perspective, I think this bill that made it through the Congress was the eighth wonder of the world. And you out there listening may wonder why. Because there were no earmarks in the bill. And there were no earmarks to specific districts in the bill. And I consider that the eighth wonder of the world, because Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution says that Congress will make appropriations. We will appropriate the funds for the projects, for the public policy that we believe is most important to move our country forward. We talked about financial stability a little bit, about how we need to make our economy stronger. Well, it comes with prudent reforms that we need to make within Wall Street, within the stock market, because it doesn't make any sense at all from this economics major at St. Bonaventure University, the fact that we're allowing speculators to drive our economy. The laws of supply and demand have seemingly been thrown out the window, and we're allowing people to bet on the price of fuel going up, people to bet on the price of commodities going up like grain and cereals and those sorts of things, bet on people foreclosing, bet on people failing to pay their mortgage. Now, to me, that sounds like a recipe for disaster. And we need some stability in our financial markets. And we need an administration like President Obama is going to enact to make sure that the Securities Exchange Commission and those regulatory agencies for our financial markets are going to do the jobs that we empowered them to do, and to bring to justice those people who are manipulating the economy. And I can tell you that many people are struggling back home. In fact, people are working so hard. In fact, a recent study that was late last year found that people of average means, average working class families, are working 18% harder, yet their wages have started to decline and stagnate and go down while their tax burden has gone up. Now, the top 1% of the country has seen their wages increase and their tax burdens reduced because of the last administration's policy that will reward the wealthiest of our country and those folks who have the means to pay and help determine public policy for our country, to invest in the things that are going to make our country stronger. We're giving them the breaks when we should be giving the breaks to the middle-class families. Remember what Senator Webb said. The health of a society is measured not at its top, at its apex, but at its base, because it's the base that invests the most into this country. And I tell you, I was so proud to hear President Obama say, and to be strong as our nation's leader and perhaps the leader of the free world, suggest that we will make it through this crisis. We will make it through this crisis. America has seen tough times before. And he said that the weight of this crisis will not determine the destiny of our nation. And he was so right, that we have the wherewithal to get through this. And to my friends on the other side who are going to prepare their charts and their graphs and talk about exploding federal deficits, we need to understand that President Obama inherited this. He had inherited $1 trillion that was spent on Medicare Part D, but yet families and seniors back home still can't get their prescription drugs, and pharmacies are struggling. We spent $1 trillion in Iraq to rebuild roads and bridges over there. President Bush thought we needed to make that investment to make sure that every man, woman, and child in Iraq had universal health care coverage. We gave $1 trillion in tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans. Well, it's time that we focus on the middle class, not on the apex, but on the base of our nation. And we do that by investing in the people that have made this country stronger and will make this country stronger. And one last point I want to make here before we wrap this up this evening. We talk about the budget deficit, and this country, since its beginnings, has carried some sort of debt, from the Revolutionary War on up through, the present time we find ourselves. In 1946, after this country made it through the Great Depression and made it through World War II, the government was spending more and borrowing more than the economy could produce. Spending more and borrowing more than the economy produced. Right now, we're at 38% of what the economy can produce. And after this investment in America, and we are on the road to recovery, we'll be about 50%. And we still have to pay this off, that's acknowledged. But we are in a great recession. And we will have the political will and we will have the economic wherewithal to pay down this debt and get it closer to the margins that President Reagan saw back in the 80s, right around 30 and 28 and 30%. So we need to make those decisions. President Obama talked about that resolve. We will make